Hey everyone, good morning. This is Chad Peterson. I just wanted to give a quick demo of my imapex application called ACI Bootstrap. ACI Bootstrap is a application that will help simplify the deployment of ACI environments. So the idea around this is to be able to quickly stand up test labs and proof of concepts in a structured manner for customers, so we don't have to spend a lot of time on doing things like configuring very basic port policies, link level policies, CDP policies, and provide kind of a simple canned way to get ACI up and running, provide all the basic policies that we need to have in place to go ahead and provision the fabric, and then also provide connectivity to the physical elements that you're going to want to plug into the APIC environment. So things like your servers, the routers that you're going to be adjacent with when we create our L3 outs, all the APIC physical connections, things along those lines, plus all the out-of-band DNS, NTP stuff that just, things that we have to go through to just get ACI up and running. I wanted to automate that in a simple way so we can actually show off and demonstrate ACI's strengths around anything in the tenant model. So being able to create EPGs and contracts and showing how easy and fast that part is. So ACI Bootstrap, the main components are down here in the red. We kind of have an upload or import functionality. This is where we're going to take values out of an Excel sheet that will be provided within the repository called ACI Bootstrap Tool Excel sheet. We have a Smartsheet web form front end for that, but you can have any sort of front end as long as it outputs to the same data structure as that Excel sheet. Once we upload that into the ACI Bootstrap tool, ACI Bootstrap will go through and pull out all that data and structure it into a YAML file that Ansible can understand. And so the crux of ACI Bootstrap is a big Ansible playbook that goes through and takes these variables, puts them into different, or pulls together different templates in these variables and creates all the JSON configuration that we need to configure the ACI fabric. So within ACI Bootstrap, we have that upload functionality, all the YAML variables, the functionality to actually execute that playbook, and then also a log viewer called Talon. So a quick demo. So here's the GUI for ACI Bootstrap. First we go ahead and choose a file that we want to upload. I already pre-filled one of these Excel sheets out so you don't have to watch that. And so we go through, click on it, we hit upload, and once it refreshes, it's imported all the data. All we have to do now is click run. And so you can watch the log viewer to see everything that comes out of the system. So this is, I set Ansible up in the system to go ahead and output everything to a log, and that's going to be rendered here within this, this monitor down at the bottom. But as it goes through, you can see that's creating all of our BGP route reflector policies, installing those to the fabric, doing things like installing our time policies, DNS policies, creating all of our VMM connections, everything that we would want to do to kind of get a base fabric up and running. And so while that's running, I'll take you over to the code so you can kind of see what's happening behind the scenes. So most of it is going to be running out of this ACI bootstrap.yaml file. This is what the playbook is for Ansible. Most of the plays here are using this ACI REST module. And this is something that Jason Edelman wrote, and I've leveraged it, made a few small changes here so it outputs things the way I wanted. But in general, all we're doing is taking a JSON file and pushing it to the ACI's REST interface. That allows me to not really have to worry too much about what version ACI is running on. I don't have to worry about making sure I have the right Cobra SDK or anything along those lines. I also created a few of my own modules to just get specific things like all of the spine IDs, or all of the leaf IDs or controller IDs here. Didn't necessarily have to do that. There were some other modules already written to query the fabric, but I wasn't really able to figure out data parsing real well within Ansible, so I went ahead and just wrote my own modules for it. But the main process of what we'll be doing inside of ACI Bootstrap, let me get to a good example here. So here's a good example of creating all the internal subnets for a proof of concept tenant. So within every setup here, we could have multiple tenants and we can have multiple subnets under each of those tenants. And so kind of the way ACI Bootstrap works is using the template functionality of Ansible, we create these Jinja templates of the configuration that we want to push into ACI. And what it will do is go ahead and take those templates, grab the variables that we're looking for, and create the JSON needed to push that template into ACI. And what we're going to do is just iterate over some various variables and lists and dictionaries to pull that correct information out that we're wanting. And so once we create all the templates using the template module, we'll go ahead and do the same functionality to install those using ACI REST. And we'll just iterate over all the same variables, but this time instead of pulling the templates, we're going to be pulling the actual JSON file that we created with the previous command. And so the way it works over and over again, we're going to be creating JSON from these templates based upon the variables that were inputted from the Excel sheet. The whole thing, I wanted to keep it as simple as possible, even to the point where I've created, say, even a port map of how you need to physically plug things in. I just didn't want to have too many user options exposed. So as you can see, we've completed all of our changes. We've had over 92, it looks like about 119 different tasks execute within our playbook. And so now if I log into my fabric, all right, so most of the work that has been done is going to be kind of under the tenants and fabric sections here, so the fabric access policies. We've gone through and created things like our VPC domain that we'll be using, other things like our switch profiles that we'll actually be using within ACI. It's throwing some errors because I'm using the simulator right now and we don't actually have physical switches behind here. I'm also going to create all the interface policies, so things like our link level policies, so I can set the various speeds on ports. Other common settings like creating a CDP enable and disable, same thing for LLDP, also providing some common methods of creating port channels, and so on. I'm also going to create all the different policy groups for my VPCs. So I create a different one based upon what I'm doing here, a specific one for my UCS servers, and then just numbered ones for other servers. I also have some policy groups for some, say, generic one link, say 10 gig servers or 1 gig servers. Also have created my leaf profiles here. So here you can kind of see I have my L2 out switch, my L3 out router, a block of ports that will be used for my rack servers, and UCS FIA. I also go ahead and create all the AEPs for the different type of devices that we'll be attaching into the fabric. I create all the different VLAN pools that we'll be using when hooking into those, and then also the different FISDOMs and external bridged and routed domains that we'll be setting up within the tenant structure here. So here, just an example, tenant-1. All the tenants from an application perspective look the same. I just kind of put in a canned 3-tier app here, kind of with a web app DB with some basic contracts between them, all hooked up to an L3 out. The L3 out can be kind of basically configured through that Excel sheet. Just kind of specify what routing protocol you want to use, if you want to use one. and give it a little bit of information, and we'll set it all up for you. We automatically expose all of these EPGs to vCenter through the VMM integration. That again is done through that Excel sheet. We set up all of the bridge domains, and I just have a front end and back end bridge domain, which all it does is advertise or not advertise the subnet out to your adjacent routers outside of ACI. With that, that's kind of a quick overview of what ACI Bootstrap does. Its main focus really is to just kind of get all of the tedious work of setting ACI up done and out of the way, and provide kind of a few examples kind of in the tenant space for a customer or Cisco engineers to start working from, or maybe leverage and build upon these inside of a lab or a proof of concept. Thank you.